If you have an older iPhone, it's really important to, one, focus on the performance and improving the performance, and two, focusing on the battery life and improving the battery life of those older iPhones as they start to age. I'll walk you through all of those steps that you need to take, and let's jump right in. Now, the first thing we're going to do is open up the Settings app on your iPhone. Let's check to see your battery life and battery health. That will give us a good baseline of where your phone is. So on here, you can see my battery health is normal, and more importantly, my max capacity is at 93%. Now, you want to check your battery capacity. It should be about 80 or 85% or higher, depending on how old it is. However, if you find that it's lower than 85 or 80%, that is a good time that you want to replace it. You can see you can expect about a 1% drop per month. And once you reach about 80%, it's time to replace that battery life. So now we've gotten a baseline of where your battery's at. Let's improve your battery health. So going back into the settings, I'm just going to go back and I'm going to choose power mode here. You can see adaptive power. This is a brand new feature in iOS 26 that I would highly recommend turning on. It will manage the power and hence the battery of your iPhone in real time as you're using it. But we also want to check and see what you're charging it to the charge limit. Now, you might think, hey, I should charge this all the way up to 100% because that will just give me more battery life throughout the day. However, keep in mind with these lithium-ion batteries, it's important to not charge them to 100%. This actually degrades the battery life over time, and I would recommend instead sticking to about 90%. That seems to be about the sweet spot. I would recommend charging it to 90%, and you'll notice in the morning when you unplug your phone, it'll be at 90%, but it will keep the longevity of that battery life over time. Now let's go back out of here and do a couple things that will help to extend your battery life throughout the day and not drain it so quickly. So on here, there is a big culprit on here, and it's called background app refresh. Now, if this is turned on for Wi-Fi or cell data, you'll be able to see all of these apps refresh in the background no matter what. Even if the app is closed, it can constantly refresh and check new, feed items, download new information, and use up your battery life. So I would highly recommend turning this off, but also go back out of here. And you'll also see if you go to the bottom here, you'll be able to see, where is it? Oh, it might be back here in display and brightness. There it is, always on display. Now, if you have this turned on, your battery will constantly be draining because your display is constantly on and using up that battery life. Unless you really love this feature, I would highly recommend just turning it off. You can always check the display just by tapping on your phone, and then it will start to pop up. But another thing is using your battery life. Essentially, it's the location services. So let's scroll down until we get to location services. And on here, you'll be able to see a bunch of apps. Any app that has that little arrow indicates that it's used your location recently. Again, this drains your battery because it's constantly checking the satellite connection on your phone and locating where you are and sending it to other apps or to Apple. I would recommend turning any of these if they're always set to always, then switching it to while using the app, or maybe even never. Now, I would also recommend scrolling down because you'll be able to see system services. These little orange or purple rather arrows indicate that it has used your location recently. Any of these that have arrows, you might want to consider turning it off. Or you might want to just consider copying exactly what I have turned on here and what I have turned off. Keep in mind, I've gone through everything and turned on with the things that are the most helpful and turned off the things that are not that helpful that essentially drain my battery life. The next thing that we're going to do here is to go back out here to the very beginning of your settings, and let's check the storage on your phone. So we've addressed a number of different things related to your battery, but let's also change some things, or at least check some things that are associated with the performance. And one of those is if your phone is running out of space. Now here you can see I have about 55 gigs worth of free space, so I'm good to go. But if you have less than say 500 megabytes, I would highly recommend going into some of these apps and tapping on them and hitting delete. Now, a really nice thing, instead of sorting by size, you can sort by last used date. This allows you to scroll to the bottom and see apps that you don't use very frequently. So scroll to the very bottom, and these are apps essentially that you might want to consider deleting because you haven't used them very often, and this will help free up space on your phone and make it run faster. Next, let's go back out of here, back to the very beginning, and then we're going to tap on accessibility. And on here, you'll be able to see an option that says reduce motion. Now, if you have a really old iPhone, this motion essentially gives you that parallax effect when you open and close apps. They'll kind of shrink and expand, and it adds some basically visual interest to your phone. But this uses up a lot of the background performance and the processing speed of your older iPhone, and it's completely unnecessary. You get all the functionality without it, so you can always turn off or turn on rather reduce motion, and this will help to basically extend the performance and extend the battery life of your phone. Now let's go back out of here. The last thing I would recommend doing is checking to see if there's a software update. You can see I'm at iOS 26.2. This is a double-edged sword. A lot of times these new updates have added features and added security benefits, but they're also meant for the latest iPhone, in this case, iPhone 17, which is currently out. So keep in mind, when you do update, it might further slow down your iPhone. So think and basically weigh the odds of whether you should update or shouldn't update based on whether those features are worth it enough to see a bit of a slowdown on your older iPhone.